we'll get started. So, Miss Megan, we're going to let you go ahead and get started. You can unmute yourself, and you can also share your screen with us.
All righty. Can everybody hear me? I hope everybody can hear me. And if you can see my screen. Let's see here. All right. Okay, so my name is Megan Shear. I am the agriculture teacher at Heritage High School, and I teach general horticulture and plant science, and I also teach the floriculture class every spring. So one of the first things, I was going to talk about marketing your plant sale before and after the fact, but I also wanted to discuss what I use for my horticulture openers. And I already uploaded this to the actual Ag Teacher Share, so it is under horticulture openers, but every day I have my kids do a math problem. And these are actually from the floriculture contest. So what I do is I went on to Georgia Ag Ed and I just uploaded into Google Slides a different problem every day, and my kids come in every day and they do a horticulture related math problem. I teach on a math hallway, so I'm surrounded by math teachers in case I get stuck on a problem, because that has happened. But my kids every day come in and they do a problem. They have a sheet that they turn in at the end of the week. Let me pull one up. And these are all already uploaded. You can just make a copy of it, but each week they have this sheet that they turn in. They do 4 every week, and then on Friday I usually give them a quiz with essentially the same problems. So I know a lot of people are like, what do I do for horticulture class? How do I open class, everything like that? So I use this mainly because the kids get very, I guess, good at realizing, okay, this is why we use an 8-inch pot for this in the greenhouse. This is why we use the fertilizer that we use. This is why we have to be mindful when we put Osmocote out, because there's a reason for it. And it's just an application to cover those standards that I know a lot of people are like, don't know how to cover that. So there's like, I think 63 problems. We don't do one every day. My greenhouse is about 10 minutes from the school, so we don't always have time to do one. But it's a lot of different problems about calculating cost, anything like that. And like I said, these are the same problems that you see at the floriculture contest too. So it's just killing 2 birds with 1 stone. And all my kids do these. They're not the best at them at first, but they get really good at them. So it just takes time. Does anybody have any questions about using horticulture problems? I also have 2 exams I posted, and it's essentially the same thing. The kids work them out, we go through them, and those are posted also in the Ag Teacher Share. So that's what I use for class openers. I know a lot of people don't necessarily know what to use, so that's what I use. And that is posted in the share. Now, plant sale marketing. We had a pretty successful plant sale, and the greenhouse is something I really enjoy doing. My kids, like I tell them, you know, when you leave my program, I hope you could kind of run a greenhouse. So we run it like a business. They calculate cost. They use integrated pest management. We do it all. And I have them actually sell to customers. They have to know their plant knowledge before they can come work the plant sale kind of deal. So one thing I have noticed, and I've recently finished my EDS at Kennesaw State in curriculum and instruction. So one of the actual assignments I had to do is we had to do a family and community engagement project. Well, I don't necessarily know what to do. So on our Facebook page, me and my greenhouse manager, we actually took one of our planters from Dixie Green Mums, or Dixie Green in Alabama, where we order our mums from. I don't grow mums in my greenhouse because it gets too hot. So we always have these giant planters left over. So we've made a video on how to do a layered planter with the spring bulbs at the bottom, and then used our ornamental cabbage and kale we had left over from our fall plant sale at the top after the mums had died back. It didn't go viral or anything. I mean, I'm not going to be able to quit teaching ag just to become a viral plant sensation, but it was fun. We thought it was interesting, and it got us thinking about what we're going to do next. So you can find that at the Agriculture at Heritage page. Definitely go on and like us. But it's something interesting. It gives the kids a different side of it because they all are into videos, TikTok and all that. So it gives them just a different kind of side of what they can look at. Now, marketing your plant sale, I post a lot. Poinsettias are a really big one for me that I finally got to color up last year. We had a very successful year. So when I first started teaching ag, I was like, I don't know necessarily how to market my plants. And I remember at Midwinter Conference one year going, and Melissa Riley, I think it was, said, you know, you can't wait till 2 weeks before your plant sale to tell everybody you're having a plant sale. You've got to start, you know, show them kids planting in the greenhouse, show your plugs coming in, show everything coming in. And that's definitely something I've taken to heart. And like with my poinsettias on Instagram, if you don't have your chapter Facebook page and your Instagram page together, do it. It's a lot easier. Okay, let me get to my Instagram. So for the poinsettias specifically, because they show so much, like you can see so much in a short amount of time. So we take them from just the plug cutting. This is just a picture. Posted it on Instagram, you know, saying we planted 500 plants during second block. It's not the easiest method to use. Then a few weeks later, more growth, just to kind of build that momentum to get people thinking, okay, hey, come December, I need to be at the greenhouse to buy these plants. The color up, just show them what you're doing. It's great to show a greenhouse full of plants that are in bloom and ready to go, but show it from the beginning all the way to the end. And then just another greenhouse picture. My kids are really interactive on Instagram, and I'm sure you guys have noticed that as opposed to Facebook, but just constantly posting stuff, and obviously this is the finished product. And I just try to go in and do different stuff, like this was planting for the spring, and obviously this is January 9th, okay? We do a lot of seed production, but you're taking it from the very beginning all the way to the end, and that gets people interested. Hey, I took this, and your kids are going to be interested in it because they see from the beginning all the way to the end. And then I've gotten into videos. This is just a time lapse. If you're not doing any time lapses, it's just interesting. It gives the kids something to do. Now, time lapses do get a little fast after a while, so I wouldn't recommend them completely. And then I do videos, just, you know, just funny stuff kind of deal. And obviously the greenhouse is empty at that point. A couple other things. Let me get back to Facebook here. I had one of our teachers at the school. She's our Spanish teacher. She came in. She runs a Heritage Snapshots page, and she came in and she does pictures every time I do a plant sale. So she brings in her camera and she shares this on the local page, and it just really gets a lot of people interested in coming to the greenhouse to see what's going on. So if you've got like a photography class, or you've got graphic design at your school or something like that, have those kids come in and take pictures. If you've got a teacher that does pictures of the school, have them come in and take pictures and post those to get the word out to the community. What else?
Megan, I don't want to interrupt you here, but we had a couple of questions about your bell ringers.
Yeah.
About, you know, a lot of people thought that was great stuff. And Jessica Holloway asked if you had
the key?
Yeah, the key for that, yeah.
Well, I have the key in like a binder at the school. What I think I'll do, what I do every week, I print those sheets, obviously, and I'll work them out before the kids. So what I'll do, I'll scan those in, and they should go in order, and it'll just be a PDF document with everything scanned in. I'll try to do that next week or right when we get back to school.
Sounds good. And then somebody else asked, what do you do for your fall kids?
For my fall kids, or for my floriculture kids? So floriculture, I haven't done a bell ringer set up for them yet. I'm really thinking about making them do the nursery landscape practicums. I think they'll get mad at me, but I also think it's good to, the kids need to do stuff like that. They need that application. So floriculture, I'm still debating on exactly what I'm going to do, but once I figure it out, I'll let you guys know. Any other questions or?
I just want to reiterate what Marcus put in the chat, that some of you didn't quite catch about the Ag Teacher Share Drive. We're going to send out instructions about how to get registered and logged in for that. It's a very valuable resource that Georgia Ag teachers and teachers from all over the nation are signed up for, to be able to share files and those type things. And again, we'll post that in an email. Anybody that's registered for this particular breakout session, that's where we're going to get the emails from. So make sure you go back and do that if you've not done so, if you want those resources. Any more questions? Okay, if you've got something later on, just feel free if it comes to your mind. Next, we're going to let Miss Katrina Pollard share some ideas that she has, and I'll turn the floor over to her.
All right, guys. So a couple of selfless plugs. The Ag Teacher Share was created a couple of years ago, and they're going to send it out. But if you want to send me an email, I'll try to get you on there today. But this is what it looks like. It's a bunch of folders and just a bunch of people sharing stuff, and it's been going on for a couple of years now. Also, if you don't know about the Ag Teacher Facebook group, there's also a Facebook group where it's mainly Georgia Ag Teachers. There's some from other places too, but it's a great resource for you guys. I can share a whole bunch, but Marcus told me to keep it brief. One of the things that I do that's really awesome that I like is when we're talking about, excuse me, entomology, I give the kids an insect bag. And so I take a brown paper lunch bag and I put just random stuff in there like styrofoam balls, or I put styrofoam balls, I put pipe cleaners, I put googly eyes and stuff like that, and paint in there. And then they are put into groups and they have to create the insect assigned to them. So it's like a 3D model, and then they have to label the parts of the insect and tell me why their insect is an insect. Something else that I also do, and I don't have that written down on anything, maybe I'll do that this year. Something else that I do, and if y'all took UGA with Dr. Hamlin plant science class, I'm pretty big stickler on the plant ID portion of the class. And so I make my kids do a plant portfolio, and each class, it depends on how many plants they have to do. But I give them the plant ID list, and they have to create a PowerPoint or a Word document using the criteria. It's very, very similar to what we did if you went through the Hort for Teachers class at Georgia. And then they have to email it to me. And so we do everything like that digital. I'm not printing nothing. And so I like the plant portfolio. It kind of forces them to take what we've learned in class. I do plant ID every week, and then the plant portfolio is what we do right before Christmas. And so then it kind of like reinforces the plants that we've already gone over. And so just make sure that they have them memorized just a little bit better. And then something else that we created a few years ago is our Hort class substitute teacher grid. I have one of these for every class. And so it's just different things that they can do if I'm out, especially if I'm out for national convention, state convention, or state show, or the fair. And then I have them based on different times. So this would be like my fall one, because it's like terminology and stuff like that. And so they have to create or complete different assignments each day. And so this is already done. I just hand it out. And then it could last them 3 to 4 days. And so that's all I got for you guys, unless you want to see something else.
All right, so Jesse Bohannon said that they do something similar with the 3D insects with toothpicks, marshmallows, and Twizzlers. And then Jordan Cockburn also said, do you have a template for them to follow on the Plantfolio? And then Kristen Wilson from Heard County asked if this was also in the share drive.
They may not be, but I can add them. I know the plant portfolio one is in the Ag Teacher Drive because I've been using that for about 13 years.
All right, sounds good. Any other questions for Katrina? Or anyone else that would like to share? As Walt said, this is obviously one of our most interested professional developments. Right now, there's 287 people that are logged in. And so we're looking for people to share some ideas. There's a lot of new teachers that are here that are teaching for the first time, that something that you do that you just think is mundane would probably be earth-shattering to what they're wanting to do this year. So please feel free to share if you have something.
Marcus, I was going to share some of the things that I planned on doing for virtual learning, if that would help anybody. If you're okay with me continue talking.
Your show.
All right. So this is a project that I do that can be easily done virtually. We talk a lot about containers. That's a standard. And so I make my kids create a flyer in Canva. If you're not using Canva for your, social media and all that good stuff, my kids love using it. It's really easy to use. And so it's something super simple. They don't have to have their hands on the pots or the containers. And so super, super simple. And my kids cannot, for the life of them, still understand the difference between the different size hanging baskets and why different types of ferns go in different hanging baskets. Another one is that we use Flipgrid. And when we talk about taxonomy, we do the Carlos Linnaeus video. And so they make it funny, informative, and I usually let them do this with a pair. It can also be done virtually. So those are two things that I know that I will be already implementing if we do virtual learning this year.
Can you elaborate on the Carl Linnaeus video? And then while she's gathering that information, Allie Crockett said that she didn't have a microphone, but she did. She has her students make 3D flowers when going over the parts of the flower, and they use materials from home, so everyone's is different. I would think that that'd be easy to convert to virtual too, because it's done at home. People could take pictures and share those pictures. A couple other comments as an add-on for the plant sale. Becky Forrester buys cheap concrete stepping stones for $1.99. She has these students paint them and sell them for $10, and she always proofs what they're painting first. I think that's probably a pretty good idea. And then Jackie Cervantes, I get students to use Flipgrid, explaining how plants go from seed to finished product. If you haven't used Flipgrid, I would recommend trying it out. I want to echo that. We've done it at our school, even for school teacher stuff. And so if you haven't checked out Flipgrid, check that out. Laura Williford, another good virtual lesson is picture ID for insect or weed identification. She makes this her SAE requirement for any plant science class. And then Levi Carr, again, we're going to share all the resources after this is over with. If you'd like to be added to the Ag Teacher Share Drive, you can wait for the instructions, or you can take it upon yourself to email Katrina Pollard. That'd be Dr. Katrina Pollard. And her email can be found on the teacher directory or in the chat. All right, Katrina, back to you.
Sorry, my screen was doing something crazy. I have the rubric that I use on my screen share right here, and this is essentially what I give the kids. Who he was, what he did, information about who he was, where was he from, any cool things that they thought was interesting in their research, why he was a big deal, why he continues to be a big deal, that sort of stuff.
Katrina, do you have an example video that you could post, or do you keep them? Or
I wish I did. I plan to this year. I deleted my flip grid class on accident last year, unintentionally, of course. But I do have a bunch of other videos that I love for the kids to create videos. And sometimes we do it on Flipgrid, and sometimes we do it on Instagram, and they have to be like 45 seconds. And so I have a lot of those videos on my Instagram page.
Okay, Joseph Nesbitt said for his weeds and herbicide lessons, he has students put together a weed ID book and then different control methods and the types of herbicides to control those. Cliff Collins, this is a good point. I think a lot of us use this, build the mini greenhouses with popsicle sticks, saran wrap, pipe cleaner, etc. This way they have to understand why greenhouses are set up this way and the function of the items inside of it. It gets interesting to see what students build a heater and cooling cell, or see how they build a heating and cooling cell inside the greenhouse. There's a lot of common projects that a lot of us do, but there may be something that you've tweaked that makes a lot of sense for you. So if there's anything like that, feel free to share that in the chat as well. Jesse, we do a similar project for propagation, and they choose a technique and do a DIY tutorial. Normally they would work in groups, but this year she may not be able to assign them virtually for them to do at home. So a lot of different comments.
Marcus, I was going to say that before I do the popsicle greenhouse, something I do is that I put them in groups of like 3, and I give them the different parts of the greenhouse, like circulation fans, cool cell, benches, irrigation controller. I give them like index cards that are already laminated, and they have to go stick it on the different parts of the greenhouse. And then I go out there and I check it to make sure that they're correct, so that they know the parts of our greenhouse. And then like they do that one group at a time. And so it's just something fun, gets them up and going and makes them know the different parts.
Sounds good. Will Burt had a really good question, and it's not really a question, but a topic of discussion. He's looking for a more efficient way to document student work outside in the greenhouse. Students can get very defensive and have different opinions on the word work, looking to see what other teachers use. I've heard of people having, a will of responsibility. I've heard of people assigning roles. So if anybody could elaborate on what they do for that, that'd be great. If you want to share, sometimes this gets a little crazy in the chat.
Yeah, if you'll just let us know you want to be unmuted, we can do that, and you can tell us.
I have something fun that I do when we're talking about watering in the greenhouse, because I've noticed that the kids don't go in and water evenly, like the stuff on the edges don't get watered very well. So I just get a pack of Solo cups and put them out and kind of do it like minute to win it to see who can fill up the cups without knocking the ones on the edge over, and get them all evenly done like within a minute, and so, or 2 minutes or whatever. But the kids have a lot of fun with that, and they get to play with the water. And it also kind of just shows that they have to be a little more careful when they're watering things, especially on the edges.
Sounds good. If somebody else wants to comment on that, let us know. But there was a really good, Ben Bird had a thing that he does with fertilizer and Kool-Aid. That sounds like a really good activity. Rather than using actual fertilizer that could get expensive or dangerous or whatever. you could do a mixture with kids with Kool-Aid to talk about the concentrations and how people mix things differently and, you know, what have you. So that seemed like a good activity.
Go ahead, Brittany, if you had something. Need to unmute yourself.
I've unmuted myself like 4 times and it keeps. One of the things that I love about GVATA is that it's an opportunity for teachers to share what they're already doing in their classroom. So I wanted to make sure that everyone shares what they're doing in their classroom, especially in my new role. I've got tons of ideas and tons of stuff that I would love to share. And so I do kind of want to put in a little plug for area teachers, and that if there is something specific that you're looking for, that especially if it's just in one standard, reach out so that we can share what we have with you. But I was going to touch on that, how to deal with students working in your greenhouse. And I tried a lot of different things whenever I was working in my greenhouse at Northeast and in Tift County. The thing that I found that worked the best, especially if you're prepping for a plant sale, I break students up into groups, and every group has their own table in the greenhouse. And so that it really eliminates, like, okay, so this person's going to do this today and this person's going to do this. At the end of it all, you're going to be able to tell who worked and who didn't. If they have pest issues, if they need fertilizing, if there's lighting issues in certain parts of your greenhouse, it really helps because those students get to focus on that little bitty area. They focus on like certain amounts of plants in those areas. They kind of take ownership. I even last year, I gave students, I had them put their names on each plant at the bottom, and I gave them a portion of the funds that we earned from the plant sale. And so they helped advertise, they grew the plants themselves, and then they helped work the plant sale. And it was exciting for them whenever they sold them, because they were like, that's my plant that went out the door. And they were excited when other customers picked their stuff. So I think when you have students that have that type of buy-in, they tend to do better work. It also eliminates, because they're in a group. So when they're not doing their part, their partners are going to call them out on it a little more. Now, obviously, you need to be careful in making sure that right partners are grouped together, just like in the classroom. But that really worked well for me.
You know, one thing that we've talked about in Newton County, you talk about giving kids funds from the plant sale. Every school system is different. Everybody runs their books differently. There's some things that schools can do that other schools can't do. It's amazing when you sit down and start comparing all the different policies and procedures between schools. But we talked about having a work-based learning student assist with the greenhouses, and then using some of the funds to set up in the form of a scholarship. And so that way it made it more logistical with our policies and procedures. And so they would take a chunk of that. Now that was a conversation at the end of last year, and you know how the year's been. So we haven't implemented that yet, but that was something that we were talking about.
My plans in Tift County were to also implement a young farmer internship type role as well. So that student would then be able to use it for the young farmer internship and as eventually their proficiency. I wanted to start them as 9th graders and build them up. So that way during the class time, that would be their job, is to work the greenhouse.
There's a lot of good activities going on in the chat. People sharing stuff about scavenger hunts and virtual learning. Ashley Sapp shared a link. We'll share that with everybody as well. Allie Crockett has an app that is really good for using for scavenger hunts. So there's a lot of good stuff in the chat going on, but if you want to share it, let us know.
Jessica Holloway, would you mind just sharing a couple minutes about your scavenger hunt that you do in the greenhouse to identify hazards?
Sure. So what I do is first thing in the morning, I go into my greenhouse and I make some hazards like leave hoses unraveled and maybe electrical outlet like uncovered with like a water like hose draped over it, just random things like that. And I take pictures of each thing that I did so I remember what all I did that day. And then I pop them in to my Google Drive. And then I have my kids go through with their cell phones and they take pictures of all the hazards that they see. And then afterwards, we come back inside the classroom and they talk about each of the hazards that they saw. And I pull them up on the smart board, each of the pictures that I took that morning. And we go through and we describe why is this a hazard, and just kind of that safety inside the greenhouse.
Okay, thank you very much. That was good. Jackie Cervantes, would you mind talking about your activities you do? I know you got the description of that, but could you just give a little bit more detail and possibly share a picture of those things?
Hi, can you hear me? Yeah, so what I do is I learned this from Miss Cook back whenever I was one of her students. So you grab a plastic glove. Usually the ones from Subway work great. So if you have like a local Subway that you have some sort of connection with, this is really a really good way to use like your high school students that work at different places. Like, hey, do you want to get me some of these? They're super cheap too, but I would use something that doesn't have like the latex on them. So you get a glove and then you get 5 cotton balls and you get 5 different types of seeds. The students love to use like vegetable seeds, something that they actually eat, so they can see like, oh, I eat that, let me see how it grows. So what you do is you label each of the fingers in the glove with what type of seed you're using, and then you dip the cotton ball into some water. You don't want it to get soaking wet, but you want it to have enough water to where it'll last you a good bit. And then you label each of the fingers of your glove with what type of seed you're planting. A lot of mine like to use watermelon seeds, pumpkin seeds, just anything that you can get from the Walmart. I know I've seen where several schools can get donations. So then you dip the ball, you put it in the glove, and then you put the seeds on top, and then you tape each of the gloves on the windows. This is a really cool way for students to see like how the roots are developing, and I use it as bell starters every now and then. Well, I'll be like, all right, go get me 5 things you're noticing from your glove. Jot it down in your notebook and come back to your seat. It's a really good way to get yourself together before you start class and all. But super simple. And then I usually use pipettes to water them whenever the cotton's getting dry. Super simple way. I don't have a picture right now. I'm actually at my parents' house, but I can't, if I find some where we've posted them and whatnot, I can definitely put those on the share.
Thank you, Jackie. That's awesome. That's a great idea.
Definitely. And then I can share the instructions onto the drive as well.
Okay.
Megan, you mentioned that you have a greenhouse manager and that they get paid $10 an hour, 40 hours a month. Are you able to share where you have pulled these funds from?
So we are a charter county. They voted to do, whenever it came up, that it was a few years ago where school districts could vote to be like a charter school system or the regular school system. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was a few years ago. So we voted to become a charter county, and that opened up charter funds. So our county started pushing for these like at school internships for kids. So our technology department had a kid that was making $14 an hour fixing Chromebooks. And I'm like, well, I have a kid that works in the greenhouse like almost every day after school. Can we pay her? And she ended up, they had to apply. And usually I just pick a kid that typically doesn't have, they don't have the farm background. They don't have like necessarily an SAE at home they can work on. My first kid that did it was Isabel Hill. Some of you might remember her. She works at Berry now, actually, for their farm. But she was my first kid that did it. She had to go through and apply and fill out like a resume and talk about what she was going to do within the greenhouse. And I had her like, help me with ordering. do soil mixing, everything like that. She would train the kids before the plant sale, because I do a training session with my kids before they actually sell. So she would have to do that, and she kept just a running kind of balance sheet of the days she worked and when. If she came in and watered, if I couldn't make it out, she would come in and water. Now I have another student doing it because Isabel graduated. So I have another girl that's kind of taken over the position, and hopefully it'll be something that sticks around, because this will be my third one that's been a greenhouse manager. So it comes from the county. They're technically a county employee. Carmen is my new one, and she had to go over and actually like apply, get an ID badge, everything like that. And it was a neat experience for them. Our county's real big on kind of doing the college and career academy and work-based learning and everything like that. So I was able to talk them into it. It can be done. You just got to find the best way to do it. So she is paid with county funds. She's technically a county employee, but she didn't get paid from March on. Like, she got some hours, but that was it. So it's kind of a seasonal thing, but it works.
That's good stuff. Thank you, Megan. Pete shared something about chestnut oaks. One time, this is a little bit of mixture between forestry and greenhouse, plant sciences stuff, but I did something similar. We did persimmons, Pete, and same scenario. You had people come in and buy 2 or 3 or whatever, but then at the end, I had somebody buy me out. And of course, we had to taste persimmons prior to getting the seeds out of them and all that. So that's a good activity with students. Jesse, would you like to share about the succulent arrangement cakes? That sounds kind of interesting.
So, hey, new teacher. I'm always trying to find a way to incorporate food into a lesson, especially with my plant groups. It's hard to eat plants. So essentially, I just made little itty bitty round cakes the night before. And if I had 30 in a class, I broke them into 2 or 3 groups. So I made 10, made a whole bowl of icing. I think I used like brown and red. And then they got their cake. They iced red around and then put brown icing on top. So that was like their little pot. And then I just bought fondant from Walmart. And I don't know why, but my ag room has a full kitchen. So they just got knives, and that's a way to incorporate knife safety in there as well. So they just cut out little leaves in different shapes, and then you just roll the fondant together and it makes a cute little succulent. And they just arranged them in their cake, in their little pot, and they got to eat it at the end. But it was just a fun way for them to think about, oh, I could put a tall one here, or like a little one here. And then we went to the greenhouse and made actual little succulent arrangements the next day.
That's really cool. I like that a lot. I mean, it's cake, so of course I would like it.
Anyone else would like to share something, especially distance learning ideas, but also in-class ideas? All right, Shannon, go ahead and talk about photosynthesis lab.
Well, I'm not going to video because my kids are sitting here with me. So if you hear them scream, I'm sorry. But I actually found it, and the science teacher and I both use it. Like, she uses it in her biology lab or in her biology class, and then I use it in my plant science and biotech class. But what you do is you can take any type of leaves. A lot of times we just use bag spinach, and then we take the single hole punch. And I've even used like pothos leaves or anything in the classroom. I use different leaves so you can, so the students can see. Like, I'll use some that have been sitting inside, some that have been in the greenhouse. But anyways, but then you go and then they follow the whole process. And some of the leaves they'll put like baking soda with it, and then they mix it up. It was like a whole step process. They have to do it. So I normally do it with my advanced students or my 11th and 12th graders. But then we have super strong lights. Like, I bring in like spotlights and put them on there. And then over time, like, you actually see all of them will rise, but the ones that have like the baking soda will rise quicker. And then you can actually see, because of the carbon in there, and you can actually see them start to float. and then they come up, and it's just really neat for them to see it, because you can actually see photosynthesis occurring and then go into the process of photosynthesis, talk about the formula, and it's just neat for them to see it, because you can't really see that occurring in nature, but you can see it occurring in that lab.
Can you share those documents with us or send them to one of us or something like that?
Yeah, I'll try to send them to Katrina and let her, or post it on the Ag Teacher Share.
Okay.
Hey, one thing that I do, and the reason that I do it, I guess two reasons. I had a teacher in college that it didn't matter what we were talking about in class. I mean, we could be talking about animals. And the number one question, or the last question, I can't remember, was always, what is the chemical formula for photosynthesis? And so I like that, simply because I think that if you have a standardized test that has a science-based curriculum, one of the chemical formulas, the chemical equation of photosynthesis, is likely going to pop up. And so I really like for my students to understand and recognize that formula right off the top of the bat. And so what I do, 6 CO2 plus 6 H2O in the presence of light yields C6H12O6 plus 6O2. So that is really intimidating. That chemistry aspect of it is really intimidating to a student. And so what I do is I take C6H12O6, that chemical molecular formula, whatever, and I'll write that, but I'll have them write it on like an index card or something, construction paper, whatever you want to do. But I'll have them flip it, and I'll have them write the word glucose. And so all of a sudden, when you start writing out water or sugar, you can name it sugar, whatever you want to do, oxygen, all of a sudden that's not nearly as intimidating. And so what we'll do is I'll have them put together the chemical formula of photosynthesis just in words. And then we'll go into a hybrid of words and the chemical, equation side of it. And then we'll do all chemical equation. And so it really helps them understand that chemical formula of photosynthesis. So that's something I do.
Okay, Jessica Holloway shared another idea, virtual learning, sending home seeds and some sort of germination kit. What kind of germination kit are you talking about, Jessica?
So actually Walmart donated literally thousands and thousands and thousands of seeds to me last year. They said that they were just going to throw them away, so I just have them. I don't know if they're viable, but we're gonna test it out. But I'm just gonna send kids home with packets of seeds, and then I'll probably send them home with a pot, maybe a kit to like make their own soil with like stuff like that. Or I might send them home with some products that I have in the bag, and then hopefully they'll already have something or something like that. Either I might include that packet as well. That's what I had in my order.
I don't know if this happened for everybody else, but you were really, really breaking up on that, Jessica. Basically, you got some seed packets from Walmart, and you're just going to get those kind of packaged up in a kit to send home with your kids. Somebody was asking if kids never come to school, how would they get it? I don't know how yours would, but I know in our system, when we went, everybody went home and then didn't come back. We had a pickup place that kids could get information in packets if they didn't have access to the internet or devices at home. I'm sure other people have had different situations where they've done those type things too. If anybody wants to chime in maybe about how their school disseminated, those type things to their students.
So one of my ideas that I had was I'll just send in like in the mail, much like we did with the succulent workshop that Dr. Flanders put on. I'll just mail out the germination kits that way, and I'll probably just use classroom funds for that, because if we never go back, then I'll have funds to spend on on stuff like that.
There was a really cool idea from Janet Robbins about them bagging up the seeds for the community, and they sent them through the free lunches that were bused across the county. That's a really cool use of that.
So Brittany shared that she did a viability percentage lab using donated seeds, and that's a really good use of those donated seeds. I know we've gotten some from our local, farm supply place. As soon as we germinate the seeds in the pack and then calculate percentage that germinated, that's a great lab. It's really cheap. Yeah. And then Ms. Parrish talked about donated a bunch of seeds to local elementary school so the kids could plant them in their garden too. That's one thing we did this past year. We worked with the second grade, and we took several kids during class on the school bus down to the primary school actually, and we planted a little garden with them, and they just thought that was the greatest thing. Of those big kids working with the little kids, they thought it was Christmas time. We got about 10 minutes left. Again, we'll open up the floor for anybody to share anything they have. Mr. Kevin Surratt emailed me a plant ID quiz that we'll send out with the information. Ms. Brittany just shared another greenhouse groups checklist. That's a good idea. Ms. Eve Rogers has her students write their photosynthesis equation on old FFA t-shirts. And then they get to wear their t-shirt and get bonus points. That's good. We've had a question, Mr. Bird, to explain the celery xylem phloem lab, if you would.
Yeah, sure thing. So basically the way it's set up is that you have a couple of stalks of celery that you take a fresh cut on. You're going to want to keep the foliage on the top of the celery stalk. You're going to place it in various, like you could use red, blue, whatever shows up the best. And you're going to put them in various beakers, the measurements and whatnot. I can find the lab actual walkthrough and send it to you guys. But put it in separate beakers. You have a control one that's just has regular fluid in it. It's just going to sit there, have no extraneous stuff acting on it. You have one that sits in more sunlight, so it's going to have more heat on it. Then you have one that has a fan on it. And so what you'll see eventually is the one that has the fan on it, the heat and that kind of stuff, it's going to have a greater rate of transpiration. So you'll see a lot more of that color at the top foliage, at the top of the foliage by the end of the week. Usually I think it's like 24 to 48 hours it says to let it sit. But it's pretty simple, pretty cheap. It doesn't cost a lot. So should be pretty cool. Again, new teacher kind of ideas, stuff that I've seen students gravitate towards just student teaching.
Shannon Danforth had a current event article thing that they do with a whole lot of things that they have to complete in order to get credit. They have to fill out an investigative sheet, then a form, as well as highlight terminology they do not know. Then they must write a summary of the article. Gets them researching and writing. And I think that's something that could probably be done virtually fairly easily.
And Melissa Riley shared a link on the Georgia Ag Ed webpage. There's a lot of general horticulture information on horticulture as well. I know that when we were doing all the virtual stuff back in the last spring, there's a lot of information that they posted on the Georgia Ag Ed website. If you hadn't been recently, they've updated a lot. There's a lot of information there that you need to go check out. Really great resources. And Jackie Cervantes said you can put the piece of celery under a microscope and see the xylem and phloem too. That's good. That's a good way to partner with your science department. You can even do a joint lesson with them when they're studying the same things in biology. You can and do that as a dual class project. That would be a really good way to build those relationships within your school. Some really good stuff. We've got a few more minutes. Anybody else got something they wish to talk about?
You know, before we get away from this, and if somebody else has to share or wants to share after this, certainly, but I didn't participate in this, but I want to commend Dr. Mulkey and Dr. Flanders and the folks from ABAC. That succulent workshop that they put on was pretty impressive. Thank you guys for doing that.
And Melissa, let's see, Laura Williford was commending you on all the information you sent out. I think it was weekly horticulture lessons. I know they can go back on the listserv and find those. Are all those things that you shared also on the AgEd website? Okay, they're in the link you shared. Okay, good deal, good deal. Yeah, that was really good. That was a lot of information that was shared last year.
Can you hear me, Walt?
I can.
Okay, I plan to do the same thing this year with nursery landscape. So if anybody has nursery landscape resources and you would like to share those with teachers in the state, please send them to me and I'll be happy to get you recognized for the cool stuff you guys are doing and get those sent out to the whole state. So nursery landscape is the curriculum I plan to focus on this year.
All right, good deal. Thank you, Melissa. Travel brochure for most wanted insects. That'd be great. Please share that with Katrina, if you will. And Kate Buchanan says, I have several grow walls I share with our biology teachers. Can you give a little bit more information about that, Ms. Buchanan?
Okay, so when I got my new classroom, we had some extra funds, and one of the main things I bought was tower gardens and grow walls. We have a really small greenhouse, and so I keep a lot of our Christmas and Thanksgiving cactuses in those grow walls, and the biology teachers really love practicing propagation and stuff on them, so they don't have room, or a lot of them don't have windows either. So sharing with them has given the kids an opportunity to buy in, and I've seen my horticulture numbers grow that way.
I love you, Mama.
Good deal. That's good stuff. Okay. Barb Saunders shared that students can also put bean, pumpkin, or any other large seed in wet paper towel and Ziploc bag and grow it from home without soil. That's true. That's great. That's a good idea. Take home activity. That's good. You want to talk a little bit about that, Barb?
While she's trying to figure out her microphone, if she wants to share with that. I know Carroll County does something, and, again, this is the virtual stuff and everything at home and stuff. Carroll County Young Farmers, they do a cabbage contest, like a large cabbage growth contest. And so, you could send home some, I don't know the variety that they use. I don't know what I'm talking about because I haven't done it, but they do this cabbage contest to see who can grow the largest cabbage. And so you could send some seeds home and make it a little bit of a competition for kids to take care of their cabbage at the house. And maybe that's something that could be done at home, whether we're virtual or not. That's still a meaningful project.
Did you want me to explain that, Marcus?
Yeah, Barb, if you want to, talk about your Ziploc bag approach.
How do I get?
Yeah.
All right, there we are. Hey, everybody. wanted to welcome all the new teachers to Ag Ed. I could only imagine being a first-year teacher, how weird this might be, not knowing what you're going into. But it's awesome and it's fun. Just be as creative as you can. Try things and don't be afraid to fail, because you will a lot. Those of us that have been doing this for a while, we mess up every day. And it's just fun because our passion, your passion will come through on agriculture, whether it be horticulture or livestock or floral design. Just enjoy what you do and have fun with it. The rag doll is just, besides growing in the greenhouse, I teach the kids soil versus no soil. And, kids don't know you can grow seeds without soil. So if we go virtual for a little bit, you could probably have them do both at home. The bigger seeds, like the beans and the pumpkins, those grow quicker, as you guys know. You can see something in about 3 days. So let them try something at home. They love that stuff. Let them video, like you guys said earlier in the other explanations. But the kids just love growing things. And if they grow it, they're really proud of themselves. And they want their teacher to see what they did as well. So have fun with that. Send them some plants if you can. Send them a bag of soil if you can. Just let them have some exploring time at home if we have to do virtual learning. Thank you. Good luck, everybody.
Thank you, Barb. Ricky just shared, along with the cabbage, you could do tomatoes or pumpkins or sunflowers. And if we wanted to sit on here for another 30 minutes, I could talk to you about growing corn for corn clubs too, but we won't do that. But there's a lot of different opportunities that you could do stuff to grow for competition purposes.
Okay, we're nearing the 1 hour mark. There's been a great deal of information shared. We really, really, really appreciate folks sharing. I know the new teachers are overwhelmed right now with all the information. Again, we're going to try to send this out to be able to get that later on. I'm going to probably rewatch this myself, and we'll have this posted on our YouTube page and probably shared on our Facebook page. Speaking of which, if you not like the GVATA webpage on Facebook, go ahead and do that. Just search for that. And we're going to share videos and things like that on there. And make sure that if you've not done so, please post your name and school in the chat so we can have a record of it. Our next session will be at 4 o'clock today. And that will be on ag mechanics. So that will be a really good one that you might be interested in. And we'll look forward to seeing you at 4 o'clock. Y'all have a great rest of the day. Marcus, you got something else?
Well, Walt, I was going to say, because of the business session that we had today at 10, there's actually going to be another one this evening at 6. I'm in a different setting right now on a different computer. Can you tell us what will be at 6 o'clock tonight?
Sure. That one will be SAE record keeping. There's a lot of folks signed up to talk about that too. And if anybody wants to come.